quiet dark of her bedroom, Deenie stared into the mirror as if it were a doorway to another life. The rain tapped softly against the windows. Her reflection stared back at her with perfect skin, careful curls, and the kind of beauty adults spoke about in lowered voices, as though it were a blessing too sacred to touch. But blessings can become cages, and the cruelest cages are the ones people call beautiful. And some girls learn that far too young. Deenie was the kind of girl adults stared at too long. The kind mothers pointed toward and said, that girl could become something. She was beautiful. And for a while, beauty felt like power. Until the day her spine began to twist. Until mirrors became terrifying. Until getting dressed felt like entering a prison. And suddenly the same world that worshipped her perfection looked at her differently. By the end of this story, the girl who feared imperfection more than death would learn something terrifying. Perfection was the thing destroying her. Welcome back to VBanned Brilliant Bold Banished, where forgotten books breathe again beneath trembling candlelight, and every story hides a wound beneath its pages. Tonight's story is Deenie by Judy Blume, a novel whispered about in schools, challenged in libraries, and remembered by generations for one reason. It dared to tell young girls the truth. Not the beautiful truth adults put into greeting cards, the frightening one. The truth that your body can change without permission, that perfection can disappear overnight, and that sometimes growing up feels less like becoming and more like breaking. Deenie believed her future had already been chosen for her, not by God, not by fate, by her mother. Her mother looked at Deenie the way starving people look through bakery windows, hungry, hopeful, desperate. Every compliment Deenie received felt like oxygen to her. Every stranger who called her pretty became proof that her daughter was meant for something larger than ordinary life. Modeling, fame, admiration, perfection. Stand up straight, her mother would say constantly, as if posture alone could hold a life together. At school, Deenie moved through hallways beneath fluorescent lights and wandering eyes. Boys stared. Teachers smiled longer at her than they did at other students. Girls measured themselves against her in silence. Beauty followed her everywhere. Like a spotlight, she never asked to stand beneath. But so did pressure. And pressure, left alone long enough, begins to crack things. Sometimes silently, sometimes all at once. Her friends talked endlessly about growing up, about bras, about boys, about bodies changing in secret, like strange little betrayals happening beneath their skin. The girls laughed loudly about things that terrified them quietly. Deenie laughed too, but at night, she would stand alone in front of the bathroom mirror, pulling at her reflection like she was checking whether it was real. Because deep down, she feared something she could not name. The fear that beauty was the only reason people loved her. Because if beauty disappears, what remains? One afternoon during gym class, the teacher noticed the way Deenie bent forward. A pause, a look, a silence, too small for anyone else to notice. But some silences arrive before disasters. The doctor's office smelled cold and artificial. Like paper. Like metal instruments. Like bad news waiting politely behind closed doors. Her mother sat beside her, gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Adults become terrifying when they grow too quiet. The doctor studied the x-rays carefully. Then finally spoke. Scoliosis. Just one word. But sometimes a single word can split a life in half. Her spine curved unnaturally. Her body was changing. And soon she would need to wear a brace. A brace. Not jewelry, not silk, not beauty. A cage she would have to wear beneath her clothes every single day. The word echoed in Deenie's mind like a prison gate slamming shut. Her mother went silent first. Not comforting silence, disappointed silence, as though something precious had been stolen from her. On the drive home, neither of them spoke much. Rain crawled across the windshield in crooked lines. The world outside blurred and melted like a painting left underwater too long. That night, Deenie stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, she could not recognize the girl staring back. Because suddenly, every part of her body felt temporary, fragile, wrong. And then came the brace. Hard plastic. Tight straps. Metal. Pressure against skin. It wrapped around her torso like something designed not to heal a person, but restrain one. The first time she wore it, she could barely breathe. Every inhale felt borrowed. She looked down at herself and felt horror rising quietly inside her chest. Not because she was getting exhausted, because she thought she might no longer be beautiful. And in her world, that felt almost the same. At school, she moved differently now, carefully, stiffly. Every laugh behind her sounded suspicious. Shame turns ordinary sounds into weapons. Every glance felt cruel, even when nobody noticed. She believed they did. That is the terrible power of shame. It teaches you to become your own prison guard. Her mother still spoke about posture, about appearances, about fixing things. But Deenie began hearing something else underneath those words. Fear. Adult fear. The kind parents pass down to children without realizing it. The fear of imperfection. The fear that love disappears the moment beauty does. One evening, alone in her bedroom, Deenie tried removing the brace early. She wanted just 1 hour of freedom. 1 hour without pressure crushing against her ribs. She peeled it off slowly and stared at the angry marks left across her skin. Red lines, like scars from a battle nobody else could see. Some mirrors do not reflect you, they accuse you. Then she looked into the mirror, and for the first time, she hated herself. The room felt smaller after that, as though even the walls had witnessed her breaking. As though silence itself had witnessed something private. The next weeks became harder. School felt louder, home felt colder. Her own body felt unfamiliar, and beneath everything lived a quiet rage Deenie could not explain. Why did girls have to become beautiful before they were allowed to become human? Why did adults praise perfection, then act horrified when children broke themselves trying to reach it? Sometimes she wanted to scream. Sometimes she wanted to disappear. But something strange began happening inside her suffering. The cracks inside her slowly made space for honesty. She started noticing things she had ignored before. The girls pretending confidence. The boys hiding insecurity behind jokes. The adults speaking certainty while quietly falling apart themselves. Nobody really knew who they were. They were all performing versions of themselves for one another. And maybe beauty was just another costume. One people suffer inside long after the applause fades. One afternoon, Deenie watched her mother fixing her makeup alone at the kitchen table. The sunlight exposed every exhausted line on her face. For the first time, her mother did not look powerful. She looked frightened. Not of Deenie, of time. Frightened that life could change people. Frightened that beauty fades. Frightened that dreams rot quietly with age. And suddenly, Deenie understood something painful. Her mother had never been trying to hurt her. She had simply spent her entire life believing appearance was the only shield the world respected. That realization did not erase the damage, but it softened the anger. Winter arrived slowly. The brace still pressed against her body each day. But now, instead of fighting it constantly, Deenie began adapting to it, living with it. And somewhere in that painful adjustment, she discovered something unexpected. Strength. Not the strength adults admire in speeches. Real strength. The kind nobody photographs. The kind nobody applauds. The quiet kind. The kind that appears when nobody is clapping for you. When nobody thinks you are beautiful. When nobody is promising your future anymore. She began laughing more naturally around friends. Speaking more honestly. Breathing more freely. Because once perfection is gone, something human finally gets to live. One night, she stood before the mirror again. The same mirror. The same girl. But different eyes. She touched the brace gently. Then touched the curve of her spine. And instead of disgust, she felt agonized. Grief for the girl who believed she had to be flawless to deserve love. Outside, snow drifted slowly through the darkness. The whole world looked softer somehow. Deenie closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she stopped asking her body to apologize for existing. The silence around her no longer felt cruel. For the first time, silence sounded like freedom. It felt peaceful, like acceptance arriving quietly after years of war. And in that moment, she understood something adults spend entire lifetimes trying to learn. Your body is not a mistake because it changes. Your worth is not measured by symmetry, or beauty, or perfection, or the approval of frightened people. You are more than the reflection staring back at you. Much more. The girl who once feared becoming imperfect now understood something terrifying and beautiful. Imperfection was the thing that finally made her feel what she actually is. And reality, unlike beauty, does not disappear when the lights go out. And as the night deepened around her, Deenie smiled softly at her reflection. Not because she looked beautiful, but because for the first time, she looked honest. And maybe honesty is holier than perfection ever was, because somewhere out there, another girl is still staring into a mirror wondering if she is enough. If this story found a quiet place inside your heart, if these shadows linger with you after the screen fades to black, then stay with us. Because here, forgotten books breathe again. The banned, the brilliant, the bold, the banished. Stories the world tried to silence because they revealed too much about being human. Like, share, subscribe, and step deeper into the labyrinth where every page whispers in the dark beneath trembling candlelight. Until next time, VBanned Brilliant Bold Banished. And some stories do not haunt us because they are fiction, but because they recognize us.